to the Voiceover Round Table. I'm Mike Tobin.
And I'm Emma O'Neill. Every week, we get together to talk about all things voiceover, with a special focus on community.
Bringing you in-depth interviews, roundtable discussions, special performance events, and industry-leading guests.
Let's get started. This is the Voiceover Round Table. Our guest tonight is not only a successful voice actor, but also a community builder and a trusted voiceover business coach. He's also the creator of the VO Freedom Master Plan, a voiceover marketing program that is designed to take voice actors from part-time income, relying on pay-to-plays and booking inconsistently, to having a plan and a system to grow relationships at scale that lead to consistent business, bookings, and income.
Yeah, he's also a really accomplished content creator with a growing base of subscribers on YouTube, sharing tell it like it is, no sugar-coating videos covering the hottest topics of the day. I was telling him I was laughing out loud at some of these things. It was just so awesome. Hottest topics, as well as sharing plenty of tips and tricks for voice talent of all levels. He's been a voice actor for over 20 years and full-time for the last several. Lives in beautiful Richmond, Virginia with his son, Robbie.
Please welcome to the Voiceover Round Table, Mr. Paul Schmidt.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Paul!
Hello!
That almost makes it sound like I know what I'm doing.
Right?
Almost. Think you do? Think you do, man. Hey, welcome.
I've been friends with Emma for years now, and you and I have never, I don't think, been in the same room together, but I'm just thrilled to be here, and thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. We are so excited. It's such an important topic, right? Well, all of the stuff.
It is.
All the things.
All of the things.
Yeah, Paul, thanks so much for coming to hang out with me and Emma and our beautiful roundtable audience. Why don't we start at the start? Your bio gives us a little taste of what you're all about, but we often ask people, we want the origin story. So, how'd you get your start in voiceover, and maybe some of the career mile markers or kilometer markers for our Canadian friends?
Yes. So I started, as many people do, 100 years ago in radio in Baltimore at a station called 98 Rock, which, believe it or not, is still on the air today. They started in 1977, and I started with them in 1988 and worked there till 94, and then went to Wilmington, Delaware, and worked morning and afternoon drive there for about 15 years. And you know, when you're a jock on the air, obviously you do a ton of commercials, and that's what I did. I added it up one day. I think I did between 6,000 and 8,000 radio commercials.
Wow!
In my years there, which is, from an audio production standpoint, is fantastic, right? Because you're doing it every day. You're putting together 3 to 6 spots every day. But the problem with that is nobody teaches you acting. And you're not really encouraged to do any acting. You're just doing the punchy radio read, 3 to 6 times a day, and you get really good at it. But I always knew that the stuff that we were getting in from the local and regional agencies and then from national was way better than what we were doing on a local level. That wasn't rocket science. So I started to dig into this thing called voice acting. And there was a guy in the 90s named Sandy Thomas, who, if you go back that far, you couldn't swing a dead cat without hitting the Sandy Thomas spot. He was all over the place nationally. And Sandy wrote a book called So You Want to Be a Voiceover Star. And I bought the book. I read the book. I wrote to Sandy. Remember letters? Remember we used to get out a pen and paper? Yeah. And
so tactile.
Yeah, I had a steam-powered pen. So I started this little pen pal relationship with Sandy, and he gave me some advice. And I was in, my God, Wilmington, Delaware. And this was early 90s. And I quickly learned that if you weren't in New York or LA, you were kind of, all due respect, Emma, the redheaded stepchild, right? And so I thought,
so close.
Okay,
I'm the redheaded middle child, so it's the same redheaded
middle child. There we go. Still maybe just as passed over, right?
Exactly.
So I was 20 minutes south of Philly. So I took an unpaid internship at Mike Lemon Casting in Philly to try and learn about the business. And what I learned was, again, it's Philadelphia. It's a big market, but it's not a major market in terms of, voiceover. If you were on camera, you could work, but voiceover was not, you had to be in New York, LA, you had to be union, which at that time was SAG and AFTRA. They were separate. And you had to have representation. And, starting out as a young person in Wilmington, Delaware, I crashed and burned hard. And kind of, walked away with a few sniffles. And in the meantime, I continued in radio, and then I came off the air, and I was a digital sales manager for a group of Entercom stations, now Odyssey. And I did that for a few years in Rochester, New York. And I always kept, when you're in radio and you're doing commercial spots every day, people come to you and say, hey, you did our radio spot, would you do our cable spot? Well, sure. And they throw me a few extra bucks, and they didn't mind a punchy radio read, and I didn't know any difference, and everybody was happy, right? Everybody was blissfully happy, ignorantly happy. So I kept those clients for many, many years. And at another juncture in my career, I was selling custom software applications, in effect, really large websites to Fortune 500 companies. And we sold a site to EY. We used to be Ernst & Young, the big accounting firm.
One of my first bookings as a voiceover.
There you go.
Yeah.
And so the website was $1.7 million. And while we were building this thing out, which you can imagine took months, one of the project managers said, hey, why don't we do an onboarding video for the constituents of the website? Great idea. We hired an outside video firm. They did the video. I did the audio. I voiced it. The EY loved it. They came back, wanted a couple more. We did a couple more. And each time I went, man, gosh, I love this work. Like, I was reinvigorated, right? And by the third time I went, you moron, you love this work. Why are you not doing more of this? Right? So that's when I decided to start figuring out, okay, I'd been not really out of it. I had side clients for a while, but let's kick it up a notch. Let's get serious about this and start trying to figure this business out. And that's when I started actively pursuing clients, right? Because in the interim between Wilmington and then 10 years later, the world had changed, literally.
Yeah.
The rise of digital video, the shrinking of the technology. I was stunned. I still had all my old studio gear. I had a DAT machine, digital audio tape, right?
Nice.
I still had, but was not using my reel-to-reel, my analog reel-to-reel machine. Still had that around. Still had a CD burner, right? And I was amazed that all the technology had shrunk, and I was still using this outdated stuff. So, a good friend of mine, John Klug, was a big inspiration for me. He was doing mornings at a classic rock station in Baltimore. And John, I remember him posting, God, it had to be, close to 8 or 10 years ago. I don't know how long he's been full time, but he made the jump. He, leapt headlong into the deep waters.
Yeah.
And I thought, holy mackerel, man, you can go after your own clients. Well, when I realized that, because I had been selling for other people for years, I thought, man, if I could sell for myself and do this, well, hell, the gloves came off,
Bonus.
So, yeah, that's when I decided, okay, I want to do this full time. And I built up, in the meantime, I built up a pretty decent part-time clientele. I was making $3,000 to $5,000 a month part-time, which was
Not
nice,
bad.
right?
Yeah.
But I knew I had had sales training, a lot of it. And I knew that if I was going to do this full time, that sales and marketing was going to have to be the key. And so I spent 6 months building my plan. Some of that was better coaching, better website on the artistic side, right? And some of it on the marketing side. But a lot of it was tools and processes and messaging. And I really worked putting that program together for 6 months. Once I started executing on the plan, which was the Tuesday after Labor Day that year, it took me 9 months to go full time, and I built a 6-figure business in 3 years, which is not necessarily typical.
Nope.
I don't think that even having said it and having done it, I don't think 9 months to go full time is at all realistic. I will tell you that I did it too soon. In retrospect, if I could go back and change it, I jumped too soon. It's like an Indiana Jones movie. Like, I knew enough to jump in the biplane and get it started and get it rolling down the dirt road, but I clipped a wing on the barn and I lost the landing gear on the trees, right? And that first year to two was really tough, and then in the third year, everything broke open, and I got the plane stabilized, right? Just so we can close that metaphor out and put it to bed.
You left the part of the machine guns going off everywhere, like.
Well, yeah. There were guys, there were snakes in the cockpit, of course.
Oh,
but, that's essentially that's the story.
Nice. You made it out and made it in alive and well. Love it.
Yes. Now on that biplane, we serve peanut-free snacks.
Fantastic. Safety first, kids.
See,
Safety
with the
first.
times. We're getting with the times.
Man, I'm saying.
Mike McGann says, son, they got us. That's what Mike McGann says. The chat's always awesome. I love I love all y'all in the chat. Everyone in this group is so fantastic. Let's get down to business. We're just doing it. We're right in there. And it's funny because, Paul, you and I, when we did our sound check, we had a little chat about this. The rates are in the toilet. Sky's falling. Our marketing emails are making people hate us. And despite the robot's best efforts, voice actors keep plugging away. And there are still plenty of aspiring young talent wanting to join our ranks. So what the heck do we do now? Or more specifically, maybe I should narrow it down just a little bit because that's pretty general. What are some of the business challenges in our industry in 2023 and some of the biggest things that you're encouraging your coaching clients and community to work on in order to be successful? Hang on, let me get my pen.
That was a big one.
I think first of all is, and it's going to sound cliche and trite and, like a trope, but it's really mindset, because everything you just said is complete hype and not true. Rates are only in the toilet if you accept rates that are in the toilet.
Yeah.
Yep.
Our emails only make people hate us if we don't provide value in those emails, right? If we're targeting those emails, fear is completely 100% avoidable, right? Because, the proof is it's not that way for everybody.
Yep.
The sad part is, though, that most people, and I'm going to I'll give you a completely made up statistic, 94% of people that come into voiceover, and it's not 94% unless it's a sheer coincidence.
But statistics, they mean something.
Exactly. A high number of people that come into this business do so without sales and marketing training, and that's nobody's fault. That's just life, right? And so, we come into this business and we go, well, of course I need to learn performance, and of course I need to learn audio tech. I've never been exposed to those things before. And it never dawns on people to go, well, of course I need marketing and sales training, right?
Right.
As an industry, we haven't trained people this way, because for decades, everything was controlled by casting directors and talent agents, right?
You just walked into the room. They will love me.
Exactly. And that was, Mike, the only road to access, as I found out 25 years ago in Wilmington, Delaware, right? And the world has changed now, and we're able to go after our work, but we still have this incredibly passive mindset. And I'll tell you what brought this to the surface for me was 2 years ago, I was reading through the voice actors in New York City's State of VO survey, and there were two data points in there that bowled me over. Number one, half of us are making less than $8,000 a year.
Yep.
Right? When I started at that technology company selling custom websites, I took a part-time job at Home Depot, right, to keep the lights on while I was building my book of business during the day. I made more than $8,000 a year at Home Depot part-time, right? People are trying to do this career full-time, and half of us are making less than $8,000 a year. That's crazy.
Yep.
75% of us are making less than $40,000 a year. Well, $40,000 is nice money if you're 22 and still living with your parents. But if you have a family and you're adulting, $40,000 is not a lot of money. It just isn't.
You're going to get a talking to, I can tell you.
Right. Right. And the other data point was, the voice actors in New York City in that survey, they asked voice actors, how often are you reaching out to market your services? And 75% of us said less than 3 times a day. And I went, well, and because that's how I built my business. Whoops, my AirPod just fell out. I apologize.
No problem.
You still with me?
Yeah.
So that's when the light went on for me, and I went, wow, people don't know how to do this, right? That's why we're losing good people in this business. They're trained, they're good performers, they're not lazy, they're not unmotivated or undisciplined. They just don't know how. And so that's when I started trying to dig into that problem.
Well, let's dig into I don't want to call it a problem, but let's dig into the marketing thing a little bit more. And it can be a big scary for a lot of talent. And I think many automatically associate, when we hear the word marketing, they automatically start to associate it with things like sending marketing emails and cold calling. Some of the things like maybe marketing emails, not so bad, but cold calling, boy, if there's one thing that terrifies people in general, that's one of them. But marketing comes in so many forms.
Yeah.
So what do you think, Paul, are some of the most effective and efficient means of marketing that voice actors should be working with so that they can cut through all the noise and build that successful book of business of their own in a really highly competitive industry?
So obviously, when I decided to turn the corner and really start aggressively going after business and going full time, I still had a full-time day job. I was in sales for an advertising agency. And so I was working from 8:30 in the morning till 5:30 in the afternoon, and I couldn't cold call, right? Because I had to cold call for my day job. I had an employer I had an obligation to. So I had to figure out a way, okay, how do I get in front of these people without being able to cold call? And the obvious answer to me at the time was email, because I could get up at 4:00 in the morning and reach out to 100, 150 people by email. I could even, with my CRM, I could schedule those emails so that they would go out a little bit later, maybe 7:30, 8:00. So I would be at the top of their inbox when they got into work. And then at lunch, I would, answer any replies that I got surreptitiously on my laptop at my desk while I was eating my sandwich. And then at home, right, I come home 6:00 at night. I'd do any auditions that came in, any paid work, return any emails from the afternoon, and try and get my butt in bed to, by 9:00 to get up and do it all over again at 4 a.m. the next day. So email to me was a necessity at the time because of my schedule. It also, I think email is, number one, it's scalable. It takes about, depending on which source you get, it takes about 18 phone calls to get somebody on the line these days, right?
Sure.
We're all screening, we're all using voicemail. To me, cold calling is incredibly inefficient and it's a time suck, right? There are people, Brian Doucette, that swear by cold calling. If it works for you, then by all means use it. For me, it didn't work initially because of my schedule, and B, I think it's incredibly inefficient. The other big platform that people tend to rely on for marketing is LinkedIn, right? Mm-hmm. Especially as voice actors. We've kind of figured that out thanks to people like Tracy Lindley and Jen Greenfield and others, right?
Yep.
And LinkedIn is a fantastic database. It's a fantastic way to research and to target decision makers at companies and organizations that are likely to hire voiceovers, but it is not fantastic to use as a communication platform. And the reason is that most people aren't regular users of LinkedIn.
Yes.
1 in 7 people is likely to even use it weekly. And so the problem with communicating through LinkedIn is when you reach out to somebody, you have no idea when they're going to get that message, right? Mm-hmm. Email is more real time. It's more direct. You have a direct line to that person, to that decision maker, and email is fileable, right? We all have folders in our emails, and we save the important stuff to folders, and that's exactly what we want to happen as voice actors. Nobody's going to file your voicemail when you leave a snappy little message on somebody's voicemail with, 4-character voices worked in. That's just not going to happen because that's not the way people use voicemail. But email, they'll file and they'll come back to you later.
Yep. Love it.
Huh.
Talk about email.
Speaking of email, because it's like we get this a lot because I'll talk to previous guests and talk to other producers, independent producers, and they all say their biggest pet peeve about voice actors is the nonstop email marketing. So how do you present, without giving your course away, but all the secrets, but how do you teach people how to send an email that isn't going to get them shot, basically, and and get the please remove me from your mailing list, which was a friend of ours today sent an email and received back immediately, please remove me from your mailing list. So how do you approach that?
So if I could encapsulate it in one word, it would be empathy, right? The biggest mistake I see in voice actor, and for that matter, freelancer emails, is I, me, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Now, the first email that you reach out to somebody with, you do have to do a certain amount of introduction, right? You do have to have an I sentence or two in there just to give people a frame of reference. But largely, all your communication has to do two things. It has to center on the prospect, meaning not you, the person that you're talking to, and it has to bring value. And the best way that you can bring value is to empathize, to show that you understand their pain, to show that you understand the obstacles that they face, and that you can solve the problems that they typically have getting the job done in video production, audio production, whatever it might be. The biggest mistake we make is, I have this and I have that, and my turnaround is fast, and we end up saying all the same things that everybody else is saying. We don't stand out, right? We don't stand out because we don't take the time to understand that, that customer works in, for example, healthcare and has different considerations than an e-learning client, right? We don't take the time to understand that, hey, everybody's got 24-hour turnaround, so you're waving a paper sword at that point, right? Let's make it about solving their problem and providing value based on that value proposition. And I think that as long as you bring value and as long as you're empathetic and as long as you're consultative, and what I mean by that is you prove that you understand their pain points, you prove that you're looking out for them, you prove that you're not just here to sell a voiceover product or service, that you're really thinking about them and their problems and their pain points, and that you're working to try and, make them better at their job rather than just transactionally going, hey, you got any work for me?
Right.
Quality over quantity?
Absolutely.
Well, quality is specifically about the empathy and about the understanding.
Yeah, for sure. I'm personally, I'm marketing background in my studies, and I absolutely love marketing. But a lot of people, not so much.
Right.
Now, you get to work with voice actors at various different stages of their careers. So what would you say is different in how you advise, say, a new talent versus someone who's maybe 5 years in versus someone who's 10 years plus?
So it varies, of course. I think I think the first thing that new talent have to understand, and I say new, I'll say in the first year, right?
Yeah.
And this is true in my experience for most new business owners, even outside of voiceover. You cannot just throw open the doors and expect people to walk in, right? You have to let the world know that you exist. You have to let the world know what problems you solve, what solutions you provide, and more importantly, you have to let the world know how you do business. What I mean by that is what you believe. What's your business philosophy? Do you value relationships? Do you believe that service is the core of what you do? Right? Those values that you bring to the table as a person have real value in business. Right? I think many people, especially newer voice talent, freelancers, business people, they have this perception that sales is about getting something from someone, and it's not. The best salespeople in the world know that it's all about service. It's about serving other people. It's about earning a conversation where we can be honest about, what the client needs and what we provide, and figuring out a way that if we can't solve the problem, we damn sure know somebody that does, right? Mm-hmm. If you need a young Latino woman to help engage your audience and sell your product, I cannot help you with that. But I know 14 people that can, right? And so that's one of the great things about this business is if we're truly empathetic and we're truly focused on the client and the prospect and truly oriented towards solving their problem and making their life easier, if we truly come from a place of service, then look, trust me, the money will follow. It's not about transactionally trying to get something out of someone, in air quotes.
Yeah.
I love just before we're all of this, I'm literally taking notes like rapid fire, and then kind of going, wait, can you repeat that? Hang on a second. Can somebody else transcribe this? Oh, I never knew happening. Yeah. There's a couple of questions that I want to get to in the chat before we kind of move a little bit deeper into this, because it's pertaining to emails. One of the questions is, how do you find out what their pain points are?
The best way that I have found is to, you've got to, at the end of the day, get inside their heads. And that's what marketing is all about, right? Mm-hmm. The best way that I have found, one of the most efficient ways that I have found, is to consume the media that they consume. If you're going after, to use my earlier example, if you're going after healthcare video producers, right? They work for health systems and hospitals, and they're in that field, and yet they are the in-house video producer, then they're going to be interested in healthcare marketing blogs, YouTube channels, publications, things like that. Consume the media that they consume, and you'll start to not only understand their pain points and what they deal with on a daily basis, but you'll be able to speak to that. You can send them an email that says, hey, Emma, I just came across this great article in, Video Health Monthly, and I'm making that publication up.
Yeah.
But, and it jumped out at me, and I'm sending it to you because of these three reasons. Bullet point A, bullet point B, bullet point C. This resonated with me because X, Y, Z. Thought you'd enjoy it. Thought you'd find it useful. Thanks for keeping me in mind, Paul.
Yep.
Right? Now you're being a true consultant, right? Even if you're not dead on the mark, you'll get credit in the prospect's eye for keeping your eyes peeled for them, and maybe you'll spark a conversation where they'll actually clarify why that was almost on the mark or not on the mark at all. But you're going to get credit because you're not trying to sell them a voiceover product or service. You're trying to address their pain points, whether they have to do with your solution or not.
Yep.
So consume the media
about that.
Yeah, consume the media that your prospect consumes, and you'll get a better understanding of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I was having a conversation with Cliff a while ago, and he was saying the same thing. He's like, there's a voice talent that reaches out to him every quarter, and it's like that he sends him an article from a magazine. It's never, is there work? It's always like, hey, I saw this thing, and I thought of you. I thought you'd be really interested, blah, blah, blah. And it was exactly that, for this reason, and this reason. And he's like, I hire him maybe once a year. He's like, but he's always top of mind because of that.
Yep. Yeah. Perfect example. And, here's the thing. We get so in the weeds, and this happens in our student group too. We get so in the weeds about the mechanics of sending the email, the open rates and this and that. We can never lose sight of the fact that we are here to build relationships with people, right? And if we can, we call it providing value. If you can be a help to them, is really what it comes down to. If you can be a help to other people, then you're going to make your money.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. I love this. Speaking of money, let's shift just a titch over here to one of the things that freaks a lot of people out, rates. So why is it that with so many fantastic rate guides out there, the GBAA, Gravy for the Brain, SAG-AFTRA, that there's plenty of solid advice from the seasoned industry professionals, why do so many voice actors absolutely panic when it comes to rates? And what should they do instead of panicking?
Well, I think there are a couple of reasons. Number one, this industry historically has had, because there are so many different genres, and because the impact of what we do is measured in so many different ways, we have an incredibly multi-level, multi-genre, complex rate structure, right? Everything is different. And that's not ideal, right? That's intimidating for both new and experienced voice actors, and it's intimidating for buyers as well. And I'm not sure what the answer to simplifying that is. I think that the sooner that we accept that it's complex and everybody's struggling a little bit, the better we feel. The second reason, I think that's out of our control. That's external. The second reason is internal and within our control. And again, I come back to mindset.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it has to do with feelings of worthiness and deserving. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we are, as people, on one hand, we're selling ourselves, in air quotes, because it's our identity in some ways. It's our voice. It's our likeness. And it's our customer service and dealing with us and having a relationship with us. And that makes people feel a little uncomfortable and awkward. But at the end of the day, yes, we are in some small ways selling ourselves, but we're selling the solution to a problem as a business, right? It's much easier for me to wrap my head around, charging somebody $175 for an hourly rate if I happen to be quoting an hourly rate. It's much easier to do that as, Paul Schmidt Voiceover LLC than it is as Paul the voice actor, right? Paul the voice actor has to maintain the relationship, wants to keep things light, right? But Paul the business guy has to charge the proper rate because this is a business. And I think if we can turn the corner and see ourselves first as a business, yes, as kind people, absolutely. As reasonable people, absolutely. But as a business first, then it makes it a little more palatable for us because we realize that we're selling a solution to another business. You're not selling your solutions to Joe, the video producer. You're selling your solution to the company that Joe works for. Joe's not writing the checks, right? Joe's company is. And so, you're solving a problem not just for Joe, but for all the people in his company. And I also think that this question of worthiness is much, much more deeply embedded for women in our culture than it is for men, right? Because women are trained. I had this conversation with my girlfriend, who's a voice actor, the other day, and she said, "You know what? We're trained to be pleasing, right? To be capitulating, to be subservient, to be pleasing to the eye, pleasing to the ear, whatever it is, and that is not your value." Right? As a voice actor, your value as a voice actor is to solve a problem and to be paid appropriately based on that problem. Right? And that's, I can't, God, I wish I could. I wish I had lived a life as a woman and could remember it and could give counsel to women on that. But as a man, that's the best I have, is to understand and be grounded in your value as a problem solver and as a person. It has nothing to do with gender. And I think so often, this is my perception anyway, and this may not be correct, but so often I think women are programmed to be afraid of being a bitch, right? When what you're really doing is being reasonable and standing firm and owning your value and your worth and your rate.
Yeah. And that goes way, way beyond the voiceover industry. I think that's
absolutely
just society and business in general, and those awful double standards of, a man is being assertive and a man is being, tough on business and things like that, and then a woman is being called all kinds of names, and it's just,
And well, as a woman, I can confirm 100% that it's true. Like I've actually been dealing with that this week with a client, that I was assertive with the interaction, with the negotiation, and basically I was told that I was a bitch. And it was like, wow. So it's funny because this is a two-sided conversation, because there's a male talent and me. The male talent, you haven't told him that he's anything, and he's actually the one that's driving the conversation. But when I stepped into the conversation, I was basically told to shut up and step back into my place.
Yes. They pat you on your head and tell you to go lay by your bowl.
Yeah. I was like, wow. This, I was like, really, male counterpart, are you getting the same pushback? He was like, no, I'm really sorry to be witnessing this. This is disgusting.
Yes.
Like, yeah,
And
welcome to our world.
And I will tell you this, Emma, for not just for women, but for men. When potential partners reveal themselves to be dismissive, to not value your worth, yeah, it stings. There's no doubt about that, and it happens to me. I'm your average, everyday garden variety white male, and it still happens to me, right? In a tiny scale, probably what it happens to women and minorities. I understand that, but it still happens to me too. Move on, because those aren't your people. Those are not valuable clients for you. So many of success in this world is about finding your people, right?
Yeah.
And not wasting your breath when somebody reveals themselves to be not your people.
Yep. Oh, amen.
It was, at the end, it was like, well, you won't be getting any more work from me. I said, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
They're doing you a favor.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to work with you. Thank you.
Next. We've talked about that a bunch of times, I think, on the show here, of, the knowing your worth and everything aspect of it, but also to what you're saying, Paul, you run a business. Your name is on the tin. Your name is on the building, basically, figuratively, if you want.
Yeah. Well,
but you get to choose. People need to understand. You get to choose
100%
who you want to go after for your business.
Yeah.
And you get to choose who you keep as a partner or as a client.
Mm-hmm.
And if you need to fire a client, whether it's because they don't want to give you the rate you deserve, or whether it's because they berate you or belittle you or treat you like crap, you can fire that client. Get rid of them.
Absolutely.
That's all.
It comes back, Mike, to I think the easiest way to break it down is, the mindsets of scarcity or abundance, right?
Yep.
If you operate from a place of scarcity, then you're always going to need that extra gig. You're always going to capitulate, right? You're always going to be subservient to somebody else. And that's not the way the world works best. The way the world works best is when two peers collaborate to solve one of those people's problems, right? And when we can help somebody solve their problem, we get paid appropriately. They're happy with the value they got. We're happy with the rate we got paid. And everybody walks away and goes, man, that was awesome.
Yeah. And, to be fair, I had coffee with a couple of peers, local voiceover peers here in my city today. And one of the things we were talking about is, does that get easier with time? And we have to be honest and transparent. When you're starting out in voiceover and you're only a few years in, it is harder to say no
Absolutely.
to things. We have to be completely honest. If we were saying, oh yeah, I hold to, industry standard rates all the time, and I only take the customers that I should. Now, come on. It's hard at the beginning, and it gets easier with time. But you have to know it gets easier with time, and you have to work at it.
I would throw a caveat in there, Mike.
Please.
It's only harder in our heads.
Mm-hmm.
And I will be completely honest with you. Even from the beginning, the minute I found the GVAA rate guide, I've stuck to it like glue. That does not mean I never make exceptions, but it means that rate guide is my Bible, and I live by it, right? Now, with anything, there are reasonable exceptions. If somebody gives you a volume of work, if somebody's got a frequency of work, if somebody is close and there may be a charity, right? There are other considerations. There are edge cases. But in 80% of the cases, my rates are my rates, right? And it's always been that way for me. And I think it's tough for people because they're not settling into the business. They're not better qualified. They might be artistically a little bit better, but they're not better qualified as opposed to the rate, 10 years in than they are 5 years in. They've just gotten more comfortable with being grounded in their value and standing up for their worth.
Yeah. And it is a really, this is something that one of the many reasons I was excited to have you on tonight is about talking about mindset and the importance of it. Like it is everything in this business. You have to believe in your worth, and you have to believe in your worth, and you have to round. And every time you say no, it's, like it sounds cheesy, but when one door closes, another door opens. But it's really, really true. When you make room for what you want to do and the people that you want to work with, the clients that you want to work with, the products that you want to promote, you're making room when you say no to something that doesn't align with what it is that you want to do.
Absolutely. I've always said that a voice actor, or even any business person, any entrepreneur, your most valuable asset is your time.
Yep.
And so, to your point, Emma, when you say no to something that doesn't bring you commensurate value, then you're leaving that schedule, that time open to be able to not only find somebody else who does know your value and does know your worth, but will honor that and pay you what you're worth, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I think we conflate too many times being new with value. Look, when you go in for surgery and you get a first-year surgeon, you don't get 60% off, right? You're not getting a half off vasectomy. And if you are, please. You don't get a cheaper airline ticket for a rookie pilot, right? In other industries, there is a baseline level of training and competence, right? We have the same thing in voiceover. When you become baseline competent, then you deserve professional rates, period. End of story.
Yep.
Right? And so if you don't deserve baseline rates, there's only one reason. You're undertrained, right? You cannot deliver the goods. You don't have the basic skills to be able to deliver a professional performance with a professional audio product and all the basics. So you've got to get baseline competent first. And that's why it makes me crazy that, we have our fair share in this business. I don't think it's any more or any less, but I think we have our fair share of people that will, tie your success to getting that demo done, right? It's not about the demo. It's about getting really good at what you do. And then a year in, 14 months in, 10 months in, whatever it might be, now you get a demo produced that accurately shows what you can really do, right? Because you're not going to dazzle them with a fancy demo if you can't deliver the goods in the booth.
Yep. We're going to start taking some questions from the room, and I know there's already a few of them going in the chat, but we do want to welcome some people up on stage if they are willing. So if you're willing to come up on stage and ask some questions, so I got some questions for Paul, please, by all means, raise your hand. We will get to you in a second. Since we're talking about rates, I'm going to go to the chat, and a question from Celestia says, I've heard a few people say that it's okay to take free roles when you're starting out in order to get your name out there, but others say to steer clear of free roles or you'll be marked as a free VO actor. Thoughts?
We get what we tolerate. Right? I mean, that's exactly my first thought. We get what we tolerate. If you train people that you're either free or low cost, you're never going to retrain those people, right? There's a very well-known voice actor with a very large YouTube following that purports that, it's good to give people a sample for $5 or $10 or $15. You're never going to turn that client into a $500 or $1,000 or $1,500 client. Never going to happen. If you get them up to 50 or 75 or 100, they'll probably bail, because the reason they were hiring you was not because of the quality of the performance. They were hiring you because you're dirt cheap.
Yeah.
You don't want to win work based on that. You want to win work based on the fact that you're really good at what you do. And I realize that in some genres, indie animation, things like that, that's the currency.
Yeah.
But if you really want to be a great animation actor, God, get some really good coaching. Spend a year getting really good, and then put a demo together, and then start charging what you're worth.
Yeah. There's a great expression. Exposure can't pay for groceries.
No, it can't. Dominion Power here in Virginia does not take exposure. I've asked. They won't do it.
I will expose myself for electric power.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
We went there.
Oh,
We went there.
Yeah.
There was a Friday night back to college, but conversation.
Love it. Oh man. Where are the hands? Is like everybody on the treadmill? Like that's what we get. Oh man, I can't come on because I'm on the treadmill or I'm like walking the dog. Okay, you're walking the dog. Talk to people while you're walking the dog. It's all good.
Totally fine. We're not concerned about your audio quality this evening. We would just like to hear your voice.
Emma, are there any other questions in the chat that are?
No, I scrolled through. We've covered.
Sweet.
Actually, hang on a second. Kurt, what did Kurt say? Kurt said, I've been told by many producers that they get way too many emails. Most production houses I speak with use with D123 and favorite those who they want to audition because they rarely use the same voice over and over. He agrees with the empathy email. But that's an interesting point. That they're not using the same voice over and over.
Clients come in all shapes and colors and sizes, right? Some use some value relationships and want to use the same people or a small stable of the same people. And I really feel like that's the majority. At least that's my perception based on my experience.
Yep.
But yeah, there's no doubt a sliver of prospect out there that just, their needs are different. They want to use a different voice on everything. Totally get that. And you know what? It doesn't hurt. Maybe you get a job out of them. We all have one-off jobs. We all want to turn everybody into a long-term client, right?
Yep.
But we all have one-off jobs. There's nothing wrong with that. And as far as their complaint about, they get too many emails. No, they get too many bad emails. They get too many emails asking for work. They get too many emails that are I, me, mine, right? They don't get many emails that understand what the problem is, that cut through, that show that they know a little bit about the business. And even they don't get a whole lot of folks that even follow up. Yeah. Follow up is key.
Yep. We have some people on the stage for questions. This is awesome. We're going to go to Mark first. Hey, Mark, how's it going?
Yep.
Good. I'm an example of one of those people multitasking right now, but I figured I'd lend a voice quickly.
What are you doing while you're listening to us tonight? We want to know what
Well, I picked up my kid at aftercare. He's riding his bike in the driveway right now. Being in the car.
I love it.
Now home. D all of the above.
There we go. Cool, man.
But thank you. So I'm a voiceover actor for 30, 40 years. So I'm a product of that, get an agent and sit back and watch it happen.
You lived the change, as they call it.
Yeah, not so much these days, though. So I spent a good part of the pandemic moving out of a career. I've worn many hats in the entertainment industry, but I spent a good part of the pandemic just like getting dialed in talent-wise to what the current market it requires. And now I look at the big gaping hole in my mind map, which is marketing.
Well, we might have somebody who could answer some marketing questions this evening.
Yeah, and Paul, I've seen a lot of your content online, so I was excited when I saw this was coming up, and I'd love to hear a little bit. It's inspiring, and maybe I missed it in my multitasking, but can you talk a little bit, if you haven't already, sorry if you did, about how you approach working with a client, somebody like myself, who, like, I can mind map, so I'm obviously I've got some organizational skills, but how you might work with somebody in developing a game plan that is contemporary and appropriate to them and the times.
Well, so the main vehicle for that, and thanks, Mark, it's a great question. Thanks for being here tonight. The main vehicle for that, and the way that I work with people the best, is through, Emma and Mike have mentioned the VO Freedom Master Plan, which has 3 elements to it. It's an online curriculum. It's a community of students only that support each other and help each other through the online curriculum. And then it's also weekly coaching calls for life that I run. And the reason I've sort of done it that way is because I feel like I can help the most people without having to be all things to all people all the time, right? So what does that mean? It means you've got a very structured curriculum to take you through the process of not only, we start with mindset, because I brought it up several times earlier. If we don't get the mind right, then everything else that we do hinges on that mindset, right? And that can be to our detriment, or it can be something that we can leverage. So we start with mindset, and then we get into tools, processes, messaging, how to structure your communications, how to bring that value to every communication, how to follow up, what to say, what clients are likely to say back to you, how do you respond to that, right? So we get several levels deep in these conversations, but it's all about earning conversations at scale so that we can then get a shot at the work and we can build that clientele. You know, a lot of people, you talk to a lot of coaches in this business, I think are right. You need about 100 clients that give you at least, let's say, 2 jobs a year. And the average job is $500. Well, if you do the quick math, that's $100,000 a year, right? But it takes time to build that business. And so the best way to kind of make that time the most efficient and to avoid the mistakes and the time sucks and everything else, I feel like is, of course, I feel this way. It's the VO Freedom Master Plan, because it's a step-by-step system and a process to be able to accomplish all of that. I hope that answered your question, Mark.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'm going to keep lurking and listening and absorbing and taking action. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And I'm sorry to make the answer so commercial, but that's my honest answer.
Well, I asked the commercial question.
There it is.
No, I mean, I see you and I see what you're offering for free to the community, and I wanted to know a little bit more about how to engage that directly. So, and I'm not a plant expert. I'm just somebody who wants to step it up. You know,
I feel like a musician. I have never seen this man before.
Oh, get off of Venmo, Paul. It's like,
exactly. I was just going to give you my Venmo QR code, but you know,
listen, here on the show, one of the things that Emma and I always say this: we are not a salesy show. We're like, but when people come on and they're legit community builders, and we know and love them, and we know they got stuff that works, there's no problem. Like, really, it's not. It's all good. So. Actually, that goes to me saying that I pinned the link to Paul's website up at the top of the page. So you can go and check that out at your convenience. If that is something that interests you, there is no pressure whatsoever. But cool. Mark, thanks for being with us tonight, and enjoy your time with the family. And it's great that you're multitasking us into your system tonight.
And last thing, and I don't know why exactly I want to say this, but mastery has value.
Yeah.
So, as a teacher and as an artist and so forth. So, thank you so much.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark. Much appreciated.
We have many other questions. I just want to jump in with our mid-show reminder for the room. If you've joined us partway through this evening's show, this is the Voiceover Round Table here on Clubhouse every Tuesday evening at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, where we talk about all things voiceover with a special focus on you, our community, bringing you roundtable discussions, special events, and industry-leading guests. And tonight, our special guest is a voice actor, business and marketing coach, community builder, and content creator, Paul Schmidt. We are going to... Exactly. The crime is wild. Yes.
Unmute, my dear.
There she is.
Hey.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you. I was just curious about that email thing that you guys were talking about earlier. So I send marketing emails every once in a while, and I try my best not to add all the me's and the I's, but it's getting a lot harder, like wondering if they want to know more about me or if I should make it more about them. Could you go over that just one more time and what should really be included in a marketing email?
Just to tack on to that, someone had asked with that if they should include MP3s in their intro email.
Yeah, so there's
question. There you go.
Yeah, a few things to pick apart there. First, the maybe the most bothersome thing that you said was every once in a while, because marketing relies on consistency, right? You've got to make this a habit. You got to make it systematized so that it's like, literally rolling out of bed in the morning. And your consistency is going to contribute more to your success than anything else, Celestia. That said, to answer your question, again, it's about providing value, The first email is the toughest. The first two are really the toughest because, yes, you do have to provide value. You do have to prove that you understand that you understand the pain points and you understand the prospective person that you're reaching out to and what their concerns are and what their problem is. But you also have to be a little bit transactional in that you have to provide an answer to those pain points and those problems, right? And you do have to, in some small way, say what you do. I'm a voice actor that does this, that, and the other thing, right? I do live sessions through Source Connect Standard, and you gotta have some of that in there, but you've always got to keep that to a minimum and lead with them and their problem and their pain points, and your solution comes second and is at the bottom. I hope that gives you a little clarity.
Annie says her marketing won't get out of bed in the morning.
Celestia, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's a great question.
To elaborate on that a little bit, Paul, what it got me thinking, and having your stuff at the bottom kind of thing, I think a solid email signature can do a lot of that for you, and that's kind of unoffensive, isn't it?
Yes, it is kind of unoffensive. There's a couple of things about signatures. Number one, you don't want to put images in your signatures because and we could go into another hour show on this, but
right.
The rules around deliverability of email have changed drastically even within the last 6 months.
Yep.
And so you want to keep the images out of your signature, at least your first couple of emails. Secondly, I believe, and I haven't seen any data on this, and I'm looking, but I really believe that a lot of people filter out the signature, right? They really don't look at the information that's provided there. Now, that said, after my first couple of emails, I've got a full signature with social icons and links to my website, blah, 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 if they need it then. But the first couple of communications, keep it clean. Keep the images out, put your email address, your website. I think the only other thing I have in my signature to my first two emails are the fact that I've been a 3-time Voice Arts nominee, because I feel like that carries a little bit of weight with new clients. Yeah, right? That might help set me apart. But that's it. That's just text.
So based. Oh, go ahead, Emma.
Sorry, I have just specifically about that, because that was it's award season, so there's always going to be someone who's not a fan of awards, and it was one of those. I had to keep myself off social media because I was like, really, because it was someone posted about, I've never submitted for an award, but I don't see any value in them because I don't think clients care. And I was like, okay, well, that's kind of like when my sister, when she was a kid, said, I don't like mushrooms, but I've never tried them. How would you know? So if you've ever used it as a marketing point, how would you have any experience in it of understanding what it is from a marketing perspective? So with that, like with awards and all of the things, my question is, is it just let people do their thing? Like, we have suggestions of you should try this, or I've done this and I find this tried and true.
Yeah.
But shoving your opinion down someone's throat versus your actual experience.
I know the exact post you're talking about.
Yeah, and I probably throw myself under a bus, but it's just, I was like, really? Like, if you don't do this, cool, then don't do it. But if you haven't done it, how are you speaking on it? Exactly. And interestingly enough, I was in person at an audition today at a production company that had all of their awards on display behind the reception desk. Boom! So...
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I think that they do carry weight with clients. I've had clients tell me that they carry weight, right? I asked a client today, hey, One Voice is coming up. I explained what One Voice says and said, hey, we've worked together for years. This year, I'd like to submit some of the work that we've done. And they were just blown away. They couldn't believe, right?
Yeah.
It carries weight. It just does.
Yeah.
Not with everybody. There's no blanket statements. There are going to be people that don't really care that I'm a 3-time, Service Award nominee. And that's fine.
Yeah.
But for the people that do care, that's going to help me.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've talked about this a little bit on a couple of shows, and it's for talent. It's a very polarizing topic. It's literally like a Coke or Pepsi kind of. There are those who like, yeah, I got no problem with this, and I think it's a great marketing tool. And others like, oh, why do you do that? That's so dumb. You got to apply for an award and all that.
You apply for an Oscar. Like,
yeah, that's the way. That's the way it works. It's like if you don't,
millions spent on Oscar nominations,
right?
Millions.
Yeah, and so like that's just the way it is. But what we've said is, okay, yes, the top casting director at XYZ Casting probably doesn't care about your award. It doesn't carry much weight with them. Your agent, it might be nice that they can market you a little bit, but generally speaking, they probably don't care either. But Sally or John or whoever in the marketing department at the company that you're looking at to do e-learning with or corporate training with or somebody like that, it might carry more weight.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right?
Absolutely. And again, not for everybody. I think the major pitfall for me for awards is that voice actors ourselves use that external validation of, I've made it now. Or conversely, I can't get nominated. I must be shit, right? And neither of those are true, right? And that's, again, it comes back to mindset, knowing your value, knowing your worth, right? There are some amazing voice actors that can run rings around me that have exactly 0 voice arts nominations or 1 voice nomination, right? My awards, my not even my awards, because I've never won. My nominations don't make me better than one damn other person. Not one.
Yep.
Right? It's just for business. It shows a little bit of credibility.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
Do you want to take Roosevelt's question?
Let's have a look.
Because it's about this.
When you guys first decided, is that the one you're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
First decided to do voiceover, how many times did you have to fight the imposter syndrome, and how do you deal with it? Every day.
Every day.
Every single day. And I think, I'll answer as Tal, and then I'm going to let Paul riff on this a little bit. But more than you know, and about more things than you know. Paul was talking about rates before. Oh, I can't raise my rates because they're going to, or I can't, or have I trained enough? For me, as a bilingual talent, sometimes I'm like, oh, is my French good enough to compete? And then I'll go somewhere that they're French speaking and I go, yep, my French is good.
Right.
And so it's, to answer your question, Roosevelt, like imposter syndrome. Emma, who was it? The famous actress who's like, I can't remember who it was. And she talked on that at one point. Like she was saying, even this is one of the most accomplished actresses in the world. And I'm beating myself up that I can't remember who it was. But, Oscars and, all the awards, the amazing careers, the best actress award, and says still deal with it on a regular basis.
Oh, I even read something. It was a Jodie Foster quote today that she was talking about when she was cast in Taxi Driver. That she felt like, she was like, my ego was completely in the way. She's like, I felt that I was the veteran actor on this set, and De Niro, he kept asking me to go for coffee, and we'd go for coffee. And the first time we went for coffee, he really said nothing. He just mumbled. And then the second time we went for coffee, he asked me to run lines, which I thought was really boring because I knew my lines. And then we went again and he asked me to run lines again. I was like, oh, for the love of God, like I know the lines. And then the third time he was like, so when we're running the lines, can we, go off script and like explore these characters? And she's like, and by coffee number 6, I was like, oh my God, I'm the one that hasn't brought enough to the table. Because he developed the characters so in depth and so deeply, where she was like, all I knew about being an actor was being able to say my lines properly. She's like, so that's when I was like, oh, wow, ego got in the way. And then she started questioning herself, but flipped it around and learned from the people on set with her. But imposter syndrome, unfortunately, is one of those things that doesn't seem to go away.
I don't
just
think it ever
get
should.
better at dealing with it.
No, it's like nerves going into a performance or an event. Like if you do live events, if you're a singer or a dancer or whatever, if the nerves weren't there, you're not alive. So I think it's just it's one of those things that's going to be there, and you just training definitely helps you manage it to build your confidence. Getting performance training, getting coaching and stuff like that. It's a big one.
Imposter syndrome to me is not the problem. It's what we do with it, right? We can either choose to feel invalidated and discouraged, or we can use it to go, you know what? Time to get more training. Time to get better in this. Time to shore up this hole in my game, right? And it's not about beating yourself up. I grew up Catholic. I'm a world champion at beating myself up, right?
I know.
I can't, and I refuse to do it anymore. When I feel imposter syndrome, I know that's a good thing. That's a mirror reflecting back and saying, okay, here's a potential hole in my game. I try and look at it realistically. I try and get the counsel of other people that I respect and go, okay, is this really a hole in my game? Is this something I need to attack? Then I go fix it, right? Go fix the thing.
Yep.
Right? Whining about it and being discouraged by it doesn't serve you. Fixing it serves you. Making yourself better serves you.
Okay. And to what you just said, Paul, sometimes seeking outside counsel will help you discover that maybe that hole's not as big as you thought it was.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not it. We got some people up on the stage.
I want to ask Maurice's question first before he's just been waiting for a while. Can you speak on marketing and getting work while you have representation? Do you have to involve your agent or manager, or do you manage the work you find independently, or both?
I always manage the work I do independently. I have heretofore, I have not signed with anybody that requires me to compensate them on work that I find.
Right.
Because it's too large a proportion of my business, right? That just doesn't make sense to me. That may change. I'm open to all things as my career evolves. But to date, I don't compensate anybody who doesn't get me work, right? And most agents, unless they're more of a manager and they do require that sort of relationship, most pure agents are fine with that. And when I interview with an agent, I tell them, look, this is how I get 90% of my work. I was in sales. This is how I built my career. Most of them are fine with that. A lot of them respect it and go, okay, he knows how to build a business. He books work regularly. He's clearly talented enough to support himself. Let's work with this guy, right?
Yeah.
A lot of it's about proving that you have a body of work that will want an agent to work with you. But in terms of being able to manage it all yourself, mostly that's exactly the two forms of work that my work comes in. It's either stuff that my agents get me in front of and I audition and I win it, or it's stuff that I find myself, that I hunt and kill.
Yeah. I think it's, for Maurice, it's very important that we clarify for everyone, in case it's not clear, the difference between a voiceover manager and a voiceover agent. An agent works for you, and typically they only get paid when you get paid. So they will take a percentage of your earning on that job. You shouldn't pay for an agent. Whereas a manager is doing a different task. And so typically a manager, like Paul was saying, is going to ask for a percentage of all your business. And depending on what that book of business looks like what Paul just said, is that a good choice for you or not? That's a question you have to ask yourself when you're at that point of, wanting or needing a manager.
And that's also the specific manager. There's different management
models. Yeah.
Models. So, but Casey is in the audience, and she is an agent, and she said the last time we had this conversation that there are some agents that do take a percentage of independent work. So it's, it's one of those, like, it's what Chris was just saying in the comments. He's like, there's 500 people saying this and 500 people saying this. Yes. That is the answer. It depends.
Yes. It depends is the answer to every question in voiceover.
Yeah.
Right. I've heard them say that on panels at conferences.
Well, it's true.
It depends.
It's true.
Or you get like six of them, agents and casting directors, and 3 will say one thing and the other 3 will say something else.
Absolutely.
So that's just the way it is. Can we go to the room?
Absolutely.
Cool. I didn't see who came up first, so I'm just going to look on my screen. I got Jeffrey up there with a question. Jeffrey.
Hey, Mike. Hey, Emma. Hey, Paul.
Hello.
Hey, Jeff.
Welcome aboard. What's your question for Paul?
Yes, and thanks for the invite to the VO Freedom Program, Paul.
Thank you.
So my question is, when one of your new clients, students start off the program, what traits have you seen that, makes the transition more successful for a student, than others? Like, walk me through the program. And also, is it an annual or monthly fees?
So first of all, the question of, I think at the core of your question, Jeffrey, is who does best in this program? Is that right?
Yeah, like when do you start to see like, okay, I think, the person is getting it, they're believing in the process, and, you're starting to, you see the confidence in them, and, when you guys talk, it's like, hey, I picked up a new client, or I picked up a potential client that's like, maybe not now, but I'll add you to my roster.
Right. So part of our culture in the community, in the program, is to celebrate wins on a regular basis. And we do what we call Friday wins, right? Every Friday morning, I solicit wins from the group. I don't care how small they are, but they just need to show a win this week that makes you a little bit better, 1% better than you were last week, right? Maybe that's I got through the first module of the program. Maybe that's I sent my first set of emails this week, right? Maybe that's, hey, I got on a roster, right? Maybe it's just I got a positive reply from my first set of emails. Sometimes it's I booked this great gig, right? It doesn't matter the size of the win, but we have to, as individuals and as a culture in our community, we have to celebrate wins because, as Emma so eloquently calls it, lack of selection, not rejection, lack of selection is rampant in this business. It's part of what we deal with, right? And so we have to celebrate the wins on a regular basis. To get back to your original question, Jeffrey, the people that make it most successfully in this program and in this business, I think, have two things. Number one is generosity of heart, right? In our community, that means we're here to help people because there's more work out there than we could ever all book if we lived to be 100,000. And if we help each other, we're going to learn faster and go further and book more work together. And secondly is I need people that are going to sit down and do the work because, the year and a half I spent building this program, no program is perfect. I can't give you a perfect curriculum. At some point, you're going to struggle. A, that's what the group is for, to help you through that. But B, you've got to have the grit and the determination and the resilience to be able to work through whatever the obstacle is. That's part of business, that's part of life, and that's part of this program. So generosity of heart and grit and resilience are the two main characteristics that I look for in people in this program. And I don't put this program online for anybody with a credit card. When you interview, when you have a strategy call with me, those are the things that I'm looking for. Right? You're vetting me, but I'm vetting you because I want to make sure if I'm going to take your money that you have a likely chance at success. Love that. I hope that answered your question, Jeff.
Yes. And I mean, once you take a person, I was just, trying to figure out, is it an annual fee that you pay or a monthly?
Sorry. So typically it's a one-time payment, but we also have a 2-payment plan, a 3-payment plan, and we're experimenting right now with a subscription, which is a kind of a lump sum up front and then monthly. The only caveat with the subscription is when you stop subscribing, you lose access to the program. And that's normally not true. If you were to pay that program off, either in the 1, 2, or 3 payment configuration, then you're in for life, literally for life. Like, as long as I'm fogging a mirror, I'm going to be with you on this journey.
All right. Well, thank you, Paul, and thank you, host, for pulling me up stage. But sounds like a very, very interesting and just a great way to go about doing it. So thank you again, Paul, for lending your talents.
Thank you, Jeffrey. I hope I'll see you in Dallas.
If not this year, then next. I already went to VO Atlanta because I live here in Atlanta.
That's where I saw you last. So, yeah.
All right.
Sweet. Thanks, Jeffrey.
Now we have Elaine.
Hello. Hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi. I got new AirPods for Mother's Day, so I just want to make sure you guys can hear me.
They're working just fine.
Excited.
What an awesome piece of technology, eh, Elaine?
Yep.
They're like game changing for everything. It's just amazing. It's making life so much easier. Yeah, thanks. So thank you all for all this wonderful information. And my question for Paul is the thing that I have issues with, or the things that I have issues with are trying to get to know more about the clients I'm trying to reach out to. And what I try to do is, listen to their videos on their websites and, take a look at what they're up to. And I find this process to be so time consuming. And I was just wondering if you have any tips or tricks for streamlining that process. So I'm not like spending all day trying to look at one client and figure out how to approach them.
It's a great question, Elaine. Thank
Yep.
you. And you're absolutely right. It's a time suck, right? Think about this. If you were to even spend 5 minutes on every prospect, you're sending 12 new people a communication in an hour, right? That's not the kind of scale that you need to really be successful at this, right? So the question becomes the one that you asked, right? How do you streamline that? And that is largely being able to, and this evolves over time, right? Like with all things, we're not so great at it when we start out, but if you have a system for being able to target and identify leads, and you're able to do that quickly without doing a ton of research. Look, you don't need to know the prospect's blood type and what their first 3 children's names are, right? In order to send them an email that sets you apart, communicates that you understand their pain points and what they're going through, and seeks to start a conversation around their pain so that when they have a project, you are top of mind, right? It's not about, I'm going to send you an email and you're going to send me work this week. That's never what it's about. It occasionally happens. And when I say occasionally, it might happen to me once or twice a year where I catch somebody at the exact time that they've got against all odds, a project that is right up my alley, right?
As a matter of fact,
Yeah. Right? It happens, of course, but you got to be consistent and you got to talk to a lot of people to create that kind of luck. But to get back to the point of the matter, you've got to you've got to be consistent. And I honestly, Elaine, at this point, I've completely I've talked myself in a circle and I lost your question. Can you repeat it for me?
Well, the question was just streamlining the process. But it seems to me, if I'm sort of putting 2 and 2 together in my head from what you're saying, that you kind of have by genre the pain points sort of a little bit generalized in your head.
Yeah, absolutely.
Medical, it's one thing. For e-learning, it's another. Yeah. So I'm kind of gathering that's kind of great that you were mentioning that, because that really helps,
Yeah.
instead of trying to know everybody personally,
Yeah. You create in marketing, they're generally called personas, right? You create that to use my early example, the healthcare video producer, the e-learning, maybe instructional designer, right? All these different personas, and you build out your communication based on the likely pain points that those different personas, those market segments, that they likely have. And you're trying to earn a conversation and establish your credibility based on your understanding of that person's and that market segment's pain points and obstacles and problems.
That makes a lot of sense, and I really appreciate that. I have one other little quick question, which was more about what we were talking about with signatures and how they can hear your stuff. Is it okay to just say, please listen to me, or to say you can hear my work and demos on my website, and then list the website? Or should I just specifically send them a SoundCloud link to my demo? Because I feel like almost going to my website, is that too much work to okay, here's my demo, here are my videos, here are the things I've narrated.
Nope.
What do you think is better?
Most firewalls are going to filter out MP3 attachments, so don't send those. Send a link to your site and spell the link out to your site. And what I mean by that is, don't say, you can find my demos at my website here, and then link the word here to your website, because all they're going to see is here. Spell that link out for them and link that spelled out, link, so that they can see where they're going, right?
Okay, great.
Now, some firewalls will even filter out links. It's rare, but that's your best shot. Do not send MP3s. And then when they get to your site, SoundCloud is okay. In my, I use SoundCloud for my podcast, but I'm not really familiar with it. The main thing about your demos on your website is they should be in MP3 format and they should be downloadable, because that producer, that buyer, they're going to want to download and file your demo so that they can reference it quickly. They won't have to look up your website the next time. And if you're going to do that, if you've got your demos downloadable, you need to have your name and the genre in the actual file name.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I've got all of that. So that's good. I'm on the right track then. All right. I was just wondering in the email if I should link a SoundCloud as opposed to making them go to my website and then, no, but it makes more sense. Just go to my website. Okay.
Go to your site. And please, if you are on any of the pay-to-plays, please do not promote those pay-to-plays. You're just sending them to hundreds of your competition. And yes, we're all collaborative. Yes, we're all friends. But on some level, yes, we're all competition. Right?
Yeah.
Send them to your site.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much again, everyone. And it's great to see you and talk with you not in person, but on Clubhouse. Thanks. Okay, take care. All right.
Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
That reminds me of something. Just one of the things that makes my eye twitch is when people get on Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever it is, and they're talking about one of said pay-to-plays, and they put the actual website and they write it out with the .com, and all of a sudden you got this beautiful link and preview to whatever that pay-to-play is.
Yep.
And it's hilarious how many times you see it. It's like,
but if you're new, you don't know.
you don't know what you don't know.
You're new and you're here, now you know.
Now you know. We're going to grab a question from the chat from Eric. I like this question, and we're going to, maybe Eric, you can drop in the chat specifically. I think you're talking about a specific genre, but the question is it a bad idea to try to market to parts of the industry I'm still training in / don't have a pro demo produced yet, focusing on smaller market gigs and staying away from AAA, of course? So my suspicion when I see AAA, I think that we're talking about video game, but if you can throw it in the chat just to confirm, Eric. But generally the question, it doesn't have to be specifically about that genre for Paul, is, should you be attempting marketing if you're still training or don't have a pro demo in the particular genre? And this can go
generally in broad strokes. No.
Yeah.
Going back to my earlier point, the one reason for you to accept a low rate is because you're undertrained, right?
Yeah.
So get trained first. Why sell somebody a suspect product or a suspect service, right? Get good at what you do, right? You don't have to be, Morgan Freeman. You just have to demonstrate that you're competitive, that you understand the read, that you can break the copy down, that you perform well. You don't need to be an Oscar-nominated actor to be competent, right? But you do need to be competent. So if you're not trained and you're not competent, get trained first. So we're like, I understand the world we live in, right? Like everything is instant, right? Like, and I get it. I'm impatient too. I yell at the microwave, right? But you've got to put the steps in the right order, right? You got to get good at what you do before you can sell what you do to get a decent rate, right? To get a professional rate.
Yeah. Oh, I just imagined you there. Popcorn now. No, that's hurry. My show is on.
That's right. My programs are on.
You're not alone. Hear that Chris Allen also yells at the microwave.
So Eric said, for me, it's commercial work I'm still training in. Thanks, Mike and Paul. Cool. Yeah. So it goes for everything, that whole not ready for prime time scenario.
It goes for everything, but it especially goes for commercial.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Training. Do we have other questions? Are there hands raised? Oh, I see Annie. I don't think Annie has asked a question yet. Let's get Annie up on stage. Bonsoir, Annie Plourde.
Bonsoir, Mike. All right. So you talk a lot about the demo and the training and all that stuff. And I'm doing all the training. I, have a fabulous coach. in that moment right now where I get shortlisted on a regular basis, I book on a regular basis through pay to plays. But when do you know that you should jump in and actually get a demo and actively start marketing?
The short answer, and thanks, it's a great question, Annie. I think if you've got a good, reputable coach, they will give you a green light. And the other thing is, if you are regularly getting shortlisted and you're consistently booking work on pay to plays, that's a good sign. That's a real good sign. So I would say, you've got a green light from the market, at least in some small way. But I wouldn't, if it were me, I wouldn't feel comfortable without a green light from my coach, assuming you have a good relationship with your coach, you know them to be reputable and trustworthy, and they're not smoke blowers, right? Sadly, like I said, we've got our fair share of people in this business who are just trying to get you to that demo, because the demo is where the money is, right?
Yep.
And so when your coach gives you the green light, assuming that they're not a smoke blower, and you've put in not weeks, months of training, then I believe you're ready for your demos.
Because it's always this, a bit of a catch-22, because I do plan on keeping on getting better, as everybody else will always get better. But then you sort of have to pull the trigger at some point and invest in a good demo.
Yes, you do. And you cannot, the other side of the coin, Annie, is you can't wait forever to be the perfect voice actor. You got to get out there, right? So it's not so much threading the needle, but finding the balance between, okay, I'm baseline competent, but at some point I got to go start finding the work.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And Annie, the one thing is you're going to discover you're not just going to do one demo.
Oh, no.
And that's not to instill fear or anything like that. It's that there's, there are different junctions of your career. And maybe demo number one is demo number one. It's my first professionally produced demo to get out there in the world and, have a nice product to present to potential clients. And then maybe a few years later, it's, well, I need to do some stuff here because I want to seek representation. And then maybe a few years later, it's, I'm trying to seek top tier representation in whatever, and it's a totally different ballgame. And so you're going to be doing that down the line. At what frequency, your career will tell you. Your path will tell you, and it will, whatever feels right for you will work. But you have to be conscious of there's different steps along the way. It's going to be purpose driven. What am I trying to accomplish with this demo?
For sure. And I know that the one that I'm going to make is not going to be the one that I will use in, 5 years, 10 years from now.
Right.
Another debate that I have with myself is, do I start with a French demo or do I start with an English demo? Because, it's which one. So much.
Paul, do you want to weigh in on that?
I wish I could. I have no experience as a bilingual talent. I would think that I do. The one thing I will tell you is that being bilingual, and Mike, you know this better than anybody, being bilingual is ridiculously marketable, right?
Yes.
That's something that will set you apart immediately.
Yeah.
So if you can show that, and if you're obviously fluent and competent in the whatever the second language is, then that is definitely going to help your prospects for work.
Yeah. Annie, may I ask, French is your first language?
It is.
And you're most comfortable in it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
To me, that answers the question right there.
Yeah.
To me. Mm-hmm. That being said, to what Paul just said, if you want to dive in from the get-go and market yourself as a bilingual talent, then you can consider that too. If you are as Paul said, if you got the training to do it, then do it. But if you feel like, okay, you know what, I feel more confident with my skills and my performance and my training in French, you can start with that. and then grow. I don't know.
It's tricky because I do book overwhelmingly more in French.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a matter of like less competition? I don't know.
Yeah, you just
Could be a
just
supply
said
demand issue.
you just said that. So I'll give you a real freakish statistic from my own personal life, if you will. My first language from birth was English. I learned French at a very, very young age, and so I'm natively fluent in both. But if I look at my numbers, I technically book more commercial work in French.
Right.
Now, is that just because that's what the universe provides? Is because there's more competition in English? Is it, there's a lot of balls in the air there, but I think you kind of answered that. When you look at the amount of talent that's out there that is, let's say, North American neutral English or whatever you want to call it, versus French Canadian, Quebecois, things like that, the numbers are different. By going on your if you're on pay to plays, go and do an English audition and see how many auditions are in the list.
Yes.
Right? How many responses? 125, 150 responses, whatever. Then you get a French one and there's maybe 45.
Yeah.
And then you get a bilingual one and there's maybe 20.
Exactly.
Right? So the answer is
Right.
numbers.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you.
Bonne chance, Annie.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Even if you, couldn't weigh in the French thing, but you still are helpful.
I appreciate that.
Cool. I'll mention something later on that's going to relate to demos and stuff like that. But merci, Annie. Are there any other questions, Emma?
I haven't seen any, and we are at 9:00.
Oh.
I know.
We knew it was going to be a doozer.
Alone.
That went
brilliant.
Yeah, seriously. But I knew it was going to be, as I said at the beginning, all of this stuff is so important, and it's so kind of front and center right now with everything that's going on. But it's just been so helpful to really pay attention and kind of like drive home the not the idea or the concept, the fact that it's mindset, that rates are going into the toilet if you let them.
Yeah.
Your emails are not being responded to if you don't write them properly. Your marketing is not being received properly if you're not marketing in a way that's focusing on service, that you are in a position of being in service. Can you help? What problem can you solve? So this, I think, has been very, very, really important conversation.
Yeah. Enlightening.
Well, guys, I got to tell you, I had a blast. I'm so grateful for the generosity of both you guys to give me the time to chat with your folks. And I just love this stuff. So thank you so much for allowing me to do this.
Our pleasure. Absolutely.
And Mike, we got to get in the room together.
Definitely.
Next week? Well, it's funny that we're just talking about demos because next week, the Voiceover Round Table returns with another great special guest. We are both so fortunate to be able to call him friend. He's one of the industry's top demo producers and just one of the most genuine, fabulous humans you will ever meet. It is Air-Blowing Audio's Eric Romanowski.
Yeah, it's not an exaggeration. Like, people who have met this guy, that's what it is, and we're really fortunate to have him as a buddy, and also a rockin' demo producer, making demos that don't suck, as he likes to say.
That's his bio.
Demos that don't suck.
Next week, the introduction is going to be a little bit shorter. He's like, my bio is I make demos that don't suck.
Yeah.
So
we
cool.
love Eric. He's a good buddy, and we're looking forward to having him on talk about demos next week. And that's why I was going to say to Annie, we'll have, if you're here next week, we'll be talking about demos, and maybe I'll share a little bit of insight into the doing demos in different languages. Because Eric has worked with me on both of my commercial demos that I've produced so far. So that's it for the night. Thanks again, Paul. You've been wonderful and so generous with your time and experience. The link is, again, still at the top of the room as we play the outro music. You can go and check it out. We hope you'll join us Tuesday evening, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 Pacific, here on Clubhouse for the Voiceover Round Table. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night, and we'll hear you next week.
Thank you.
Okay, guys.